The second key insight to help us move towards giving freely to God is that David shared from his personal treasure. And so we are to share from our personal treasure. When David was going to build the temple, he didn't tax the people to say, all right, we need to raise more money so we can build this bigger and better temple. He didn't go and raid the national coffers trying to take the money from the people to pay for this thing. He gave from his personal treasure. He gave a rather large, substantial gift from his personal treasure to build this dwelling place for the Lord. David wanted to be the one to build it. And since God said no, David gave freely to make sure that everything was provided for, everything his son could need would be provided for to build the temple. And so David gave over 100 tons of gold and over 250 tons of silver. Now, I don't know about you, but those numbers don't really say a whole lot to me, right? They're big numbers. I can imagine that 250 tons of silver is probably a lot. 100 tons of gold would be a lot better. But what does that translate to today? Well, according to Answers.com and goldprice.org, the total value of David's gift, as of Wednesday when I looked this up online, valued the total gift of gold valued $4.56 billion. $4.56 billion in gold was given. And the total value of silver was over $290 million. Meaning the total gift that David gave was over $4.8 billion. That's enough to build 4 Cowboy stadiums. And who knows, maybe a home for the Vikings too, right? David realized that what he had was enough. That he had enough to contribute this generously to the Lord's work. And so he gave out of what he had. Likewise, too, we realize that we give out of what we have when we give from our personal treasures. We don't give out of what we don't have, but we give out of what we have. And this large gift that David makes inspires others to join in. That's the third key point for us today. The third key point is that David gave out of his devotion. He gave out of his devotion to the Lord because this giving wasn't about the dollar amount, the total dollar amount, or the total gift that he gave, but it was out of his commitment to the Lord. You see, giving is a spiritual matter. It's not just about finances. It's not a matter of if one gives $5 or one gives $100 or one gives $1,000 a week. It's a matter of the heart. And when David makes this gift to the Lord, he consecrates this gift to the Lord, it's not just the gift that's consecrated to the Lord, but it's the person who's making that gift as well. And so David gives out of his devotion, which leads to that fourth key insight. Because David was devoted to the Lord, because David gave out of his personal treasures, it inspired the others and leaders to do so as well. And so they generously gave, also giving hundreds of tons of gold and silver to the work of the Lord. Because they caught on to that vision, they were excited to partake in it. As leaders, we lead the way. This fall we did a pledging campaign, and many of us were here for that and turned in pledges. Over 20 pledges were turned in this year, totaling about $80,000 towards a general fund and our building fund. Now, for those that have looked at the budget, you realize that the $80,000 that was pledged is less than the amount that we think is going to be needed to cover the expenses. And so I realized that maybe not everybody was here during the time when we did the pledge time. And I also realized that things change. People get laid off. Sometimes jobs change. And sometimes circumstances change. And so I want to let you know today that if you ever would like to make a pledge, or if you would ever like to make a change to your pledge, you can simply do so by making a note on your record of attendance. And maybe today the Lord speaks to you and you feel like making a pledge to Little Prairie of what it might be. I encourage you to simply write that note down on the back of your attendance slip. Or maybe if you just want to remind us that you're going to keep your pledge the same, you can simply do so too. But it can be as simple as that. To lead the way to say, I want to make this commitment. I want to make this devotion. I want to consecrate this gift to the Lord. And you are welcome to do so at any time. You don't have to wait until there's some special campaign. You don't have to wait until the pastor's preaching on finances. You can make those adjustments at any time. And so what happens next? Well, the next key point is that the people rejoice. The people rejoice in what was being done. They rejoice in the gift that's brought forward by the leaders. They rejoice in the gift that David brings. And likewise, we also rejoice in what the Lord is doing. Now, this last year, 2010, was probably the first year since I've been here where we've actually spent a little bit more than what we took in. Probably the first year since I've been here that we've actually spent a little more than what we've taken in. And some of you have been here a long time and you've seen the ups and downs with the months and where we go financially. But at the same time, it's important to recognize and to celebrate the things that the Lord is doing. And besides just the youth group, besides the outstanding worship and the excellent pastor that you have here, there are other things that God is doing in our midst too. I think about all the confirmation, or all the 4-H students that also use this facility as a center to gather together as their community. And I think about the impact that 4-H is having on them. I think about the impact that 4-H has had on you. I also think about the healthcare organization. If you've ever been out here on Tuesday or Thursday evening or driven by on a Tuesday or Thursday evening, you might find that the parking lot is full and you might wonder, am I missing something at the church tonight? What's going on? Well, if I were to look at those numbers that were shared with me by Dr. Hansen, probably over 1,700 people received health care through the Health Finders organization that meets right here in our basement last week. That's 1,700 people have come through these doors to receive health care. That's pretty impressive and I think worth celebrating simply because we are here, simply because we've offered that space as a part of our mission, as a part of seeing what God is doing and trying to help meet the need in our community. And so the people rejoice in what God is doing. And the people recognize the source of their blessings. David realized the source of his blessings. In this prayer that I kind of skipped over most of it and then brought us in at the end of it, David recognizes that the Lord is the source of his blessings and has given to him so that he can give freely to God. We are to invest in God's kingdom wisely. We have been given many gifts, talents, skills, abilities that we can in turn invest as stewards. Which brings us to that final key point. And that one-liner that kind of got a little chuckle, that Little Prairie announces it has aliens in its membership, right? The people, David says here, we live as aliens in this land. Now, if we know the history of Israel, they have been aliens. They've been kind of nomadic people. They've been traveling from one place to another. They haven't really had a homeland until now. And now they've entered into this promised land and they've secured the kingdom and the land is well within their possession. And yet they are still calling themselves aliens. And so we wonder why. It's not that we have aliens that have come from outer space. It's not that we are a bunch of nomadic people living today. But we are a people. We have people in our congregation that realize that what we have actually comes from God. And that we are not the ones that actually own all that we own. The bank says we own our house. Well, maybe the bank still owns my house. We think we own our cars. We think we own our toys. And yet, all of those things can be used for the Lord's purposes. And God's the one that's provided those things for us to be used for God's purposes. And so David and the people realize that they are aliens. And they live as aliens in the land, allowing them to give freely to God. So David gives this extravagant gift. And we are invited to move towards generosity in our lives as well. To give freely to God. Recognizing the source of our blessings. Recognizing that all that we own really isn't ours in the first place. By giving out of our devotion. By giving out of our personal treasure. And having that right perspective that realizes that this is not about me. It's not about my work. It's not about our community and what we've done. But it's about what God is doing